The markets are moving. Mid-November isn't usually a time of a lot of movement. There's volatility for Ohio State because when you play Purdue, UCLA, and maybe Rutgers on Saturday, you get a lot of opportunities for guys who are not starters to get on the field. Welcome to The Beat. It is Wednesday. It is a Stonk Watch. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. I'd love to get into some more meaningful games, but I'm also embracing this opportunity to peer into the future and see if there's guys who, not just in 2026, might be helping Ohio State in the college football playoff.
I mean, yes, there's certainly those guys. I also looked up words that are stock exchange words.
Did you?
No, but you said things like volatility and markets. I'm like, yeah, I'm pumped up.
We're into it.
I just want to talk about last year's playoff run and how crazy it was from an offensive line perspective that Ohio State went into that run, and we were all talking about, why would you rotate guards in the playoff? You have the most important game of your life here. If you're Ohio State, if you're Ryan Day, if you lose,
it's a roll of the dice.
If you lose to Tennessee, you're gonna get fired.
Yeah.
And the Buckeyes rolled three right guards out there. And like, hey, not bad. And now here we are. It's November the 18th or 19th. I don't know. I'm not good at days, but the Buckeyes are talking about playing three guards in the last two games of the regular season because Gabe Van Sickle has put himself into position, not necessarily the way that we thought it was going to play out because all the talk had been about Josh Padilla for the last month, but sometimes Wally Pips happen, and Gabe Van Sickle has put himself in a position to give Ohio State some flexibility that they really needed because in the event that something happens to anybody on this offensive line, Josh Padilla is now able to move back and forth to center and guard, and if you don't have to say, well, Josh is our backup guard now, and if something happened to Carson Hinsman, we'd have to find somebody else. Now you have flexibility because Gabe Van Sickle played more snaps than Tigers Bowl last week, played better than, subjectively, I think was more consistent in his time. And every rep he gets, especially in pass pro, which is not something he did in high school, he's going to get better and better. And it sets it up for Ohio State in this playoff run, but also for next year because now Gabe could also play left guard or Josh could. So, there's a lot of really positive things that are developing here. And while you hate the injury bug that happens in the middle part of the season, when you have a talent advantage that Ohio State does over pretty much everybody in the country, the opportunity to get these other guys some reps and real game reps, even if they're scrimmage reps or preseason reps against UCLA, Purdue, and Rutgers, it's valuable. And you're starting to see it now, especially for Gabe Van Sickle.
So you wanted to reflect on that college football playoff run and what happened with the offensive line. I think that it's retroactively fair to say, hey, Justin Fry deserves a little more credit than he got at that time because you look at Gabe Van Sickle, we'd have thought, well, Josh Padilla is on the rise, but you can include him in that conversation. Tegra Shabola, Philip Daniels, that was also happening under Justin Fry's watch. Austin Saraveld, the development there, Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinsman. And then as we start to look ahead to whether they need to play that depth in the playoff this year or whether it is for 2026, there's a very real possibility that Austin Saraveld, Carson Hinsman, and Luke Montgomery are all returning for this team, plus Philip Daniels. You suddenly have now another year where it's 8 or 9 players who could be contributing for the Ohio State offensive line, not just into this playoff right now. So I don't think we have to get too far ahead of ourselves. Those are decisions that have not been made or going to be complicated. Carson Hinsman's been here a long time. Maybe he doesn't want to play more college football. I don't know. I'm not trying to make a prediction on that front. But when you start to factor in here Gabe Van Sickle and what he's starting to do and what we saw from Ian Moore a week ago at Purdue, and the possibility of these veterans all returning, it's that didn't happen by accident. And yes, Justin Fry missed on some 5-star big swings, but the cupboard was not bare. And now Tyler Bowen, I don't want to just talk about the guy before, and this staff with Charlie Dickey and Marcus Johnson, they've done a great job developing these guys and picking up where Justin Fry left off. But it's really encouraging what's happening on the Ohio State offensive line. So I would say stock up on all of them. What does that mean for who needs to play the most snaps on Saturday against Rutgers? I don't really know. But Gabe Van Sickle has certainly earned the right to be out there. I thought Ian Moore, gave something to think about at right tackle. But Philip Daniels, when he returned and was healthy, I thought he was moving dudes again.
He played his best game of the season.
It's almost like
he was the highest rated offensive tackle in the country according to PFF last weekend.
It's almost as if Berm, and this is a crazy idea, he might have been working through an injury for several weeks, and then they were like, let's give him an opportunity to get healthy for the stretch run. and that might have paid off. There's
that. There's also, again, what we'll now call the Tegra Shabola paradox, which is sometimes You play better when you are worried that you might not play.
The TTP.
The TTP. If you are concerned that somebody is coming for your job, you might all of a sudden ramp it up a little bit. Maybe that's just because they played UCLA, and the UCLA certainly didn't have like a elite pass rusher or someone like that to challenge Phillip Daniels, but still the highest rated offensive tackle in the country last week, according to PFF, which grades are subjective. We know that, but they've also been subjectively pretty bad throughout the last 4 or 5 weeks. So it's a good opportunity for all these guys, and the offensive line has to be prepared. This is a real physical game. We watched at the end of that Penn State game, 3 straight plays like, oh, there goes Padilla. Oh, there goes Shabola. Oh, there goes Luke Montgomery. Like, okay, this is how fast things can change. After last year, we shouldn't need that reminder, but it's there. And now you've got depth emerging, and depth that provides you not just an emergency break in case of emergency glass thing, but like, hey, we can move guys around. We can try some different things. So it's a really good job being done by Tyler Bowen and his assistants, Charlie Dickey and Marcus Johnson, like you said. So the offensive line, stock up.
Yeah. Continued stock up on the tight ends. Maybe it's not continued because I seemed like I was about ready to sell it off with the 13 and 14 personnel, and more specifically talking last week about getting a different player involved at fullback. Nate Roberts, it's still a relatively small sample size, but he had 2 key lead blocks, paving the way for touchdowns down there in the red zone. He had 2 catches for 24 yards in this game. I don't like to do it for true freshmen, and we've spent so much time talking about Edric Houston and James Peoples and guys were transitioning into a full-time role. That's still not necessarily what Nate Roberts has to do, but it still applies here. Ohio State stuck with him through a little bit of a rough patch, so we're putting you out there. It's probably not going to be perfect. You're a true freshman. This is maybe ahead of schedule for you. Maybe this moment is too big right now. But we think if you continue to do it and you get these reps, it's going to pay off in the long run. And he had a rough outing against Purdue, and then he went right back in the lab. And Keenan Bailey and the rest of that group, Will Kazmarek and Max Clare and Bennett Christian throwing their arms. Jelani Thurman also, I thought, was pretty impactful as a blocker in that game, more so than we're accustomed to seeing from him. I'm more narrowly focused in on Nate Roberts because we were talking about him and critical of some of what he was providing, again, through no fault of his own. Ohio State was putting him out there in spots that maybe at that time he wasn't ready for, but there was a long-term vision, and he's actually, I think, zipping through that growth process and the learning curve at a rate that you wouldn't expect a tight end / fullback to be doing.
Yeah, but it's also a reminder, and I hope a bit of a reward for Nate. Like, this is not a guy who was a fullback in high school, okay? Yeah. Like, he was a big time.
That's why I'm saying maybe don't put him in the backfield.
He was a big time,
but he did
top 5 overall tight end in the country prospect. So I bet he's feeling pretty good about just getting a chance to go out and run some routes in the last couple of weeks and getting back to what he actually is here for. Ohio State is convinced Nate Roberts is going to be a superstar type tight end for the Buckeyes down the road, but he's playing a position that he's really not used to and doing some things that he was never asked to do before. And so as a freshman, as a guy playing a new position, whatever it is, like you need opportunities and time to develop. Obviously, you don't want to do those if you're Ohio State in crunch time and key moments, because we've seen throughout the year that has not always been yielding the result that you want. But as I've talked about over the last couple of days, I wrote about on Monday at Letterman Row, like if you're Ohio State and you question whether or not the Buckeyes have been tested, like every player on this roster has been tested individually to get to this point that they're at. And so they keep fighting through things. The staff deserves a ton of credit for not giving up on those guys, like Nate Roberts, like James Peoples, who Ryan Day was asked about again on Tuesday. Like, now you start to see the fruit, and what you get out of Nate Roberts is going to be like really paid off next year and the year after. But if you walk away from that now and you say, well, sorry, bud, you are not ready, I think you risk long-term damage.
Yeah, but you also could have, because like 8-9 games of reps is not nothing. Yeah. Like, it's plenty. So you know what?
There's a big enough sample size to do that.
You can still grow from that. But to your point, like it maybe wouldn't have damaged anything. Maybe it wouldn't have been ideal for the confidence, but they would have shown it for long enough and like, this is important for you. Here's where we're going to grow in the off season. We're probably going to scale it back right now. I hope you can understand why that was not the approach they've taken. Yeah. And they really like doubled down on it. Now, does that apply the same way to going to the Big House or Lucas Oil Stadium after that potentially? I don't know, but it certainly doesn't hurt that he got those reps and then capitalized on them. Whether it was against Purdue or UCLA, doesn't make much difference. Success is success, reps are reps.
Yeah, and stock up on the idea of a fullback position at Ohio State, honestly, because thinking about going to Ann Arbor in 2 weeks, like Michigan's entire run game clicks because of Ben Bredesen or Max Bredesen, whichever Bredesen it is up there, still at fullback. Like if you have a guy that can equalize numbers, and that changes things. And so whether it's Nate Roberts, whether it's someone else next year, I think it's an indicator, especially with Brian Hartline as the offensive coordinator and Keenan Bailey bringing in this number of tight ends, like you can do a lot of things.
Yeah, you can. Do you think James Peoples changed the dynamic in terms of backfield usage, carries, based on what he's done in the last 2 games?
Yes. And I think it's not just him, though. I think it's also Bo Jackson and Isaiah West continuing to prove that they are trustworthy with the football, that they can do some things inside of the 5-yard line, and you don't need to put in C.J. Donaldson, who, again, has done a great job this season in that role, but you saw the difference on Saturday against UCLA, the opportunity that Bo Jackson and Isaiah West provide because of their ability to quickly make a guy miss in the hole. There are times if you don't have a lead back out there, if you don't have a lead blocker out there, where that guy has to make that first guy miss. And C.J. Donaldson has not done that this year. He's been great from the 1. He's been pretty average from the 5.
Yeah.
Bo Jackson and Isaiah West were pretty darn good from the 5 and great from the 1. So I think for the entire room, it changes things. But as I said at the live show at Roosters on Monday, I think what James Peoples gives you is flexibility in the passing game as well. He's a little bit better as a pass blocker than Bo and Isaiah. Not as good as CJ, still working on it, but he does provide a weapon out of the backfield now. And if that confidence continues to go up, then the opportunities are going to go up as well.
All right. I wanted to, you mentioned James Peoples in there. I wanted to get your thoughts on that before we moved ahead to your next stock.
I just really think that Zion Grady, every time he plays, proves that he needs to play more. And so it's a weird kind of a bad situation because you have a lot of other guys, but Logan George didn't play last week. Zion Grady gets to go in. Obviously, the CJ Hicks conversation is ongoing. As I talked about on Snap Judgments on Tuesday, one of the things that CJ said is that he's ready to play in 2 weeks. He's like, I'm playing in Indianapolis if we get there. So what does that mean for Zion Grady? I don't know. But he's going to have an opportunity again against Rutgers to probably get a lot of reps, especially senior day for Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry. Maybe if the Buckeyes can handle their business early, you can get those guys a break so that you don't risk anything because they're going to have to play every snap against Michigan, I think. Zion Grady's
They're
a
going
guy.
to want to play every snap.
Yeah, well, that too. Zion Grady's a guy that I think has flashed every time he's been out there. And when you start to look ahead, if Ohio State doesn't have any way to bring Caden Curry back or Kenyatta Jackson, depending on what the courts do with injunctions here, if injunctions there. That's amazing how much courts are involved in college football now. But there's real confidence, I think, developing that Zion Grady can be a guy that you can count on day 1 next year, which I'm not sure people would have anticipated that 2 months ago.
His body type doesn't necessarily, like if you just line them up, like he doesn't look like Kenyatta and he doesn't look like Caden. But the motor, I think, especially when it comes to a Zion Grady comparison with Caden Curry, I think there's a lot to like there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't. Maybe it's a product of only getting 5 or 10 opportunities to make a mark and just like going 100 miles an hour when you're out there. I don't know if it's, Ryan Day talked about that with Caden Curry. Can you sustain that? Thinking about him early in his career and going into year 4, can you do that 25 times, 30 times, 35 times? It seems like Caden Curry can now, but he had to build up to that, whether that's mat drills, that's weight room, that's practice habits, all those things getting better. And as you mature over time, that's the thing that I think you can see with Zion Grady right now is that would you ask him to go be a starting defensive end for Ohio State at this moment? No, that would be problematic. Can you use him in certain pass rush situations? Can you use him to stop the run 5 to 10 to 12 times right now? I think he's absolutely going to give you everything he's got. And what he's got naturally is really impressive. And I think once you add on another year in the offseason program with Mickey Marotti and, Larry Johnson and the future in that room and everything, like it is bright. I mean, that guy is fun to watch. I didn't think we were going to see this much of Zion Grady in year 1.
No, but I think that's because we naturally assumed that the transfers, Bo Atkinson and Logan George, would come in and be the guys to spell Kenyatta and Caden. And then you had CJ Hicks. So they're like, okay, well, they've got guys.
Yeah.
So you didn't think that you had to get to your 6th defensive end, but now he's moved up the list. And clearly he's made more of an impact than Logan George has this season in his limited reps. And I would argue that his limited reps have been on par or better than Bo Atkinson's the majority of the time that he's been out there. So, Bo has another year of eligibility, and you think that maybe you can continue to grow with him through the program, but now you have someone else coming up. And as you mentioned, it's really the 3 months after the season that will be key for him to see how the body changes, because he's got the 6'4", 240-pound frame, 245. But if you can get him to that 265 that we saw Jack and JT when they finished up a year ago, then all of a sudden you have a much different specimen.
This is mainly a 2026 conversation. I think you knock on wood. Like Jalen McLean and Caleb Downs. Caleb got the second half off some of that NBA-style load management on Saturday. You never want anything bad to happen. I'm not trying to put that negative energy out into the universe, but they play a physical position, and at some point you may need a third safety. Fahim Delane, man, it was just 3 tackles. It was just, 15 to 20 reps in that second half because that game got over so quickly and so many 3-and-outs. He looks like the next Jalen McLean to me. He plays with a bad attitude, and I enjoy that tremendously.
I remember watching Fahim when he was at Good Counsel High School in Maryland, watching him against Lakewood St. Edward and the Armstrong twins and a really good St. Ed team, and he was basically a middle linebacker that day for Good Counsel. And boy, he likes to hit people. So there's a lot of Lathan Ransom to his game. But I think what happens naturally is that the more time you spend around Matt Guerrieri, Matt Patricia, Caleb Downs, you start to see the other side of the game. And now a player that coming into his freshman season was expected to just kind of be a lumber layer is becoming I can do this. I can move here. I can learn how to this part of the nuance of football, and I can put myself in different positions. And the flexibility that Matt Patricia's defense allows gives this guy an opportunity to make some plays. Obviously, I'm not sure that there's time or reason to tinker at this point in the season to say, well, let's move Caleb into the slot. And because, again, Lorenzo Stiles has played pretty well. So it's just pieces, man. They have so many pieces. And Fahim, and then next year when you add in Blaine Bradford from Louisiana, you've got 2 really physical, big-bodied safeties that are super athletic and smart. So it seems to be ironic to me that the Jim Knowles safety-driven defense thing is sort of been, we haven't said it much this year, but this is still a safety-driven defense.
Well, that's because he isn't coach here anymore. He's gone.
Well, we don't talk to Matt Patricia often on the record, so I don't know he's been goaded into saying that yet, but when you look at the future of the Ohio State defense without Caleb Downs, Jalen McLean has to be that guy next year, and then who's going to be next? Because they've got dudes.
It's also because I feel like Matt Patricia's approach is more linebacker-led than safety-driven. And that's pretty good too, because you're seeing Riley Pettijohn, you're seeing obviously Peyton Pierce. I don't include him in that.
Yeah,
I know that
he's a starter.
He is the third starter, but these guys that are getting the most of these opportunities in the last couple of weeks, you don't have that possibility all that often in mid-November. It has turned into training camp 3.0 for Ohio State, and exhibition season is what you called UCLA last week. Rutgers is going to be more of the same.
Yeah.
And that's a real benefit in terms of keeping guys fresh to get ready for what's coming after that.
But it's also not just keeping guys fresh. It's about getting opportunities to see young players like Riley Pettijohn against Big Ten teams. That has not always been the case at Ohio State, but it's not just Riley. It's watching TJ Alford out there. When you talk about a guy who brings a little bit of nastiness to the field, one of my favorite exercise this season during Ohio State games has been watching TJ Alford on kick coverage, because it is very Cade Stover-esque, which is I'm going to find someone and I'm going to hit someone.
Terminator.
You watch 10 dudes run down the field minus the kicker. 9 of them are looking to avoid getting hit. And then there's TJ Alford, who's I'm going to run into someone. And every game it's been, is this one going to turn into a fight? Is this one
getting pretty close.
You have to love that. I mean, you need guys like that on your team. And then you give him the opportunity to say, TJ, you provide us this. And then now next year, we all know Sonny and Arvell aren't going to be here. So it's, there are 3 starters at linebacker. There's no reason it's not going to be Peyton Pierce, TJ Alford, and Riley Pettijohn. So getting these moments now is so important for those guys.
Yeah, you got another one.
You know who else is good? I got to talk, because you have tried to buy up all of Mylan Graham stock over the last year.
I know I succeeded.
when you're starting to see the things that Ohio State saw when he was a recruit, when he touches the football. There is a electricity, and he hasn't broke one yet. He's very close on Saturday to doing it against UCLA. It's coming for him. He's going to pop one of those, and it's going to be the Garrett Wilson G5. We can still use G5 because Graham starts with G.
I think he's going to be the M5.
Oh, that's a car, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about private jet.
Still a luxury vehicle.
But you can still say G5 because his last name is Graham.
Yeah, but that's taken. It's trademarked.
All right, whatever.
G5 has already existed.
There's something
happening. And then you take
there.
the first letter, so it's Garrett 5, Mylan 5.
Okay, yeah. I'm fine with it.
I own all the stock. I get to make these decisions.
I think, and we talked about it on Tuesday. We'll talk about it again on Wednesday night on Snap Judgments after Woody Wednesday. If there's a doubt that the other guys can't play, that Carnell and Jeremiah can't play, then that means more opportunities for Mylan, Bryson, Quincy, David Adolph, everyone else. But Mylan is someone who needed these opportunities in a major way. And it's not because his recruiting pedigree, it's not because of anything else. It's you're here for a year and a half with Brian Hartline, and if you don't see the field after that in that time frame, it becomes real hard because there's a next wave coming. And guess what? Chris Henry Jr. was just bumped up again in his national ranking. He's now the number one rated.
He's now a 6-star.
He's now the number one rated recruit in the country at wide receiver. Again, you've got really good players coming in behind you. So it's not like a rubber meets the road situation, but it is my hourglass feels a lot shorter at wide receiver than it does in other positions. So it's huge for Mylan to be making catches, getting out there, learning the game, being physical. I think one thing that is probably going to go undiscussed, and maybe I'm making a point of it that doesn't need to be made. With Bryson Rogers, Brandon Ennis, Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter, those guys on the field last weekend, the run blocking from receivers looked a whole lot better to me than it has throughout the season. And so I don't know if it's a coincidence that the run game got more going, especially on the outside, or if it was just the quality of opponent. Ryan Day did say that Carson Hinsman had 9 knockdowns on against UCLA, and that it's hard to knock down a trash can 9 times. So Ryan Day was saying that UCLA is worse than trash. Just kidding, he didn't say that. Don't clip that. He didn't actually say it. But I thought,
but he wouldn't be wrong.
I thought the perimeter run blocking was better with those other guys in the game, and you have that moment to prove yourself, and you take advantage of it. So kudos to Mylan and those guys for doing that.
Yeah, I really had to twist my arm to talk about Mylan Graham on a stock watch. I'm glad you did. Welcome to the party, pal, and thanks for spending another part of your day with us on the beat. It is a Wednesday tradition to get those stocks going, and I don't know if that's exactly how it's going to look a week from now.
I bet it won't.
When it'll be time for war. But we'll have those conversations when we get to them. We'll also be back in this building tonight, Wednesday night, for a Woody Wednesday. We got a Ryan Day lightning round and a handful of players that we'll hear from, and we'll probably be trying to put eyeballs on some of them as well, just to see.
We'll see if the receivers run off the field.
They might be gone, so there might not be any update from that either, and there definitely won't be from Ryan Day. That is not a bold prediction. That is a spoiler. Thanks for joining us on here on 97.1 The Fan, 10TV, 10TV Plus, all those YouTube channels, Apple, Spotify, Roku, anywhere if you're getting the audio only. We appreciate all of you. He's Berm. I'm Austin. We will talk to you later.